Hello, welcome to the second tutorial about using a bow on a koto. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about the single string technique. Simply, this means playing melodically on a single string. So first, let's start with the setup. To begin, simply tune the koto to any normal tuning that you like. And you notice I prefer to take the G out of the second to the top string here, the E, the 12th string. This is to give me a little bit of space for my fingers. But yeah, tune your koto to a normal tuning. The top note, I prefer to tune it to C, but I recommend tuning it to some note that you choose, that you prefer. Again, I'm using C here. Let me switch the view so you can see better. Okay, here's my setup. So you'll notice that I have marked the strings in various locations. The way I've done this now is to use a pentatonic scale. And there's a reason for this. With the pentatonic scale, I have enough notes that I know where all 12 notes of the chromatic scale are. At the same time, I've limited the number of markings that I need to look at, which gives me a better sense of where I'm at in the octave. And you also notice that I'm using two different colors. I've marked two notes, D and G, as kind of my primary notes, and the other notes of the pentatonic scale in black. And you can do this however you want. You can use more colors, whatever you like. Now, about these markings, on koto it's normal to use these kinds of dermatology pencils. And certainly you can do this, use one of these to mark your markings. However, with these, they're going to be a little bit waxy. And when you're moving around on the string, it's going to rub off on your fingers. And it's going to be a little bit awkward to be moving around. You won't be able to move as smoothly. This is still manageable. I prefer to use a permanent marker to mark the strings. This makes it less waxy, smoother to move around. However, you can do this however you like. Now that I've used my permanent marker to mark these markings, as long as the string stays the same tension, these markings are going to be the correct pitch. However, of course, the tension is going to decrease over time, right? So it's going to go flat. When that happens, these markings will no longer be correct. And then how do I fix that? The way I'm going about this is simply to raise the tension of the string back up using a small G. You can do it on the left side or you can do it on the right side. Simply use a small G and slide it over until you get the tension so that your original note is in tune. Again, this is C. So I would tune the C, and then all these markings should be the correct pitch. A quick note about how I found the markings. I simply go about this by pinching the string, playing it, and then marking it. Now, to go over some basic technique. First, I want to tell you what not to do. As I was first experimenting with how am I going to use a bow and a koto, there are a couple of things that I did that we're not so good. My first assumption was that I'm going to need to pinch the string in order to get a good sound. Okay, actually that's unnecessary, completely unnecessary. It's just going to make your fingers very tired very quickly. My next assumption was, okay, I'm going to need to press on the string quite a bit in order to get a good sound, all right? Again, completely unnecessary. You don't need to use so much pressure with your left hand. And next, since I was using pressure, I wanted to find a way, how am I going to play different notes? Maybe like this, okay. And then, okay, how do I go higher? I was thinking of some weird things like walking my fingers like this. Okay, it was a silly idea. Don't do this. I ended up actually hurting myself a little bit trying to do that. All of that is unnecessary. I'll show you a much better way to go about this. Simply, all you need to do is, with your index finger, touch the marking, and then with these fingers, you can keep them kind of side like this, and just lightly touch the string. You don't need a lot of pressure. Yeah, just a tad bit of pressure, and that's enough. That's enough to get a good sound. So there you go. And that actually is the basic technique. Sliding your hand up and down to get the notes. Okay, now there is one very important thing I need to say about the pitch, though. And this actually threw me off for quite a while, was that, for example, when I tune the Koto, I've learned to have the marking on the right side of the G. And so I'd pull the G up to the marking, right? Okay, so when I started playing like this, my tendency was to try and do the same thing. Okay, here's my finger. I'm going to move my finger up to the edge of my finger, up to the marking. Okay, that doesn't work. That will make you flat. Okay, actually what you need to do, since you are touching lightly, you need to have the center of your finger align with the marking. And as simple as that is, it honestly really threw me off, especially going up high. It feels a little bit strange to have your finger go so much past the marking. And so I was often playing flat when all I needed to do was realize I needed to have the center of my finger line up with the marking. Next, a point about keeping a correct position with your wrist. As you go up, you want to avoid bending your wrist like this as you're trying to get the high notes. Try to keep your wrist more straight, and just have your fingers go at a diagonal. And in the opposite direction, as you go low, same thing. You can just go like this, and you'll end up with two fingers here, that's fine. Keep your wrist more or less straight. Okay, again, the basic technique is to have your fingers together on the string. However, there's sort of an exception to this. This works very well as I go up. However, as I come down, there's a problem here that I'm covering up the markings. In order to see the markings, I simply drop out these fingers, and now I have the ability to see where I'm going. Okay, so that's the basic technique, and actually this might really be all you need for an awful lot of playing. However, yeah, if you want to know more, here we go. So, can I use my other fingers besides just my index finger? Yes, of course. So, first of all, I would suggest using the thumb for an occasional upper neighbor, especially the half steps. The way I suggest doing this is not to press like this, not to release and press with the thumb, but rather to kind of pinch. Pull your fingers toward you, press with your thumb. I think it gives a bit better of a sound. It's also a bit quicker. So next, about the middle finger. Actually, I don't really use the middle finger much, but certainly it can be useful for chromatic passages. Okay. What I do tend to do more often than using the middle finger, is actually the pinky, but not the tip of the pinky. I'm going to be using this part of my finger, and just keep your fingers kind of cupped together like this. Find the marking where you want to play, and you're simply going to kind of roll down onto the side of your finger. It's a little bit challenging, a little bit more challenging to get a good sound, but yeah, with practice it should come. So now that we've talked about the left hand, let's talk about what your right hand, what your right arm needs to be doing. There are three basic parameters to keep in mind. The first one is how close to the G you are playing. And the second one is how much pressure you are using. The third one is bow speed. Of these three parameters, I think bow speed is the most important to work on. So generally speaking, I think probably the tendency when you're starting out is to be bowing too slow. And certainly this was the case for me. So in order to practice bowing speed, I have an idea. Start off by doing the opposite, actually bow too fast. Very light pressure. I'm going to start on a middle note and start bowing too fast and gradually increase the pressure and gradually decrease the bowing speed until I find a really good sound. Very lightly, a little too fast. And do this for a low note and the high notes as well. Okay, the low notes, the bow speed is going to be quite a bit slower, and a high note. Yeah, see, the high notes, the bow speed is quite fast. And to finish off this video, I have just a couple more pieces of advice. One is to remember dynamics. It's easy, you're trying to learn how to do this, you're really focusing on pitch. It's easy to forget to play loud and soft. Also, remember to occasionally lift the bow, let the music breathe, have some points of rest. For me, definitely, I had a tendency to always be bowing continuously, but it sounds much better to occasionally lift the bow and let it breathe. That's all. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to know more about, for example, what kind of bow to use, what kind of rosin to use, please check out my first tutorial. And I will be making some more of these tutorials, some practice tips, some more information about the single string technique. So please check it out. Thank you.